Hey guys, James MC Reviews here, and I am back in Chicago. Had a lot of fun in Florida. I got to spend the holidays with my family and my friends and my girlfriend. Now I'm back in my city preparing for a brand new semester of school, and as expected, I saw a lot of movies while I was away, but two of them took priority in terms of reviews. Star Wars and Cats. For obvious reasons. And since I'm gonna be spending these next 2 weeks, getting back to work and preparing for this next semester and all this other stuff, the only amount of exposure I'll probably be able to give these movies would be to throw all of them into one video and just rapid fire through my thoughts on them. So yes, it's time to break in the new year with the very first Ketchup review of 2020. I have 8 movies that I saw while I was away for Christmas break, and I'm going to go through them all in the order that I have written down on my notes here. And then at the very end, I'm gonna rank them from worst to best. So here we go, let's do this. Starting off, Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. This is one of those ones that came out at a really awkward time for me because this was when I was preparing for finals and also preparing for my trip. I eventually did see it when I came back. Me and my mom saw it together, and I didn't really care for it, to be honest. There were honestly two things, well, more than two things that made this movie watchable for me. The performances all around were really good, especially Tom Hanks as Mr. Rogers. He isn't Mr. Rogers, but he keeps the same charm and likable charisma about him. The story and how it's framed as like, an adult episode of Mr. Rogers was really clever. I didn't know that they were gonna do this. Like, I thought it was just gonna be a Mr. Rogers biopic and that was it. But the fact that they made it about this guy, this journalist who's going through some like personal shit and who has like Mr. Rogers as kind of like a mentor in some way, that was pretty cool. And I like how they kept with the whole like Mr. Rogers TV show vibe, having like the aspect ratio change at some point, having like the different transitions be like kind of hokey and like fake looking with the models and stuff. That was kind of cool. But honestly, where this movie kind of falls apart is that its message is kind of like problematic, because like, without giving too much away, the guy in the movie is going through some really like serious shit, like between with his family and his own wife and kids, and his dad doing some pretty questionable things, and that having a major effect on him. And the way that it's framed makes it kind of difficult to like accept the message that they're trying to send, because like adult problems and children's problems are vastly different, and there's a lot more to them than just like the bare minimum. So I don't know, I kind of took issue with that. But I mean, like, other than that, it's a fine movie. I wouldn't call it anything special or like something that you absolutely need to go see. Like, honestly, if you're looking for some bit of Mr. Rogers related content, I would still highly recommend the documentary that came out a couple years ago, the Won't You Be My Neighbor. That was really interesting. This, I just say, if you're interested and if you want to see Tom Hanks as Mr. Rogers, go for it. But other than that, I would say you can skip it. If I had to rate it, I'd probably give it a 3 out of 5. Next up is Jumanji, The Next Level. This is the sequel to Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, which was one of the biggest surprises of 2017. And honestly, when I saw that they were making a sequel, I was less nervous than when I was with the first movie, but also still really nervous. Thankfully, this movie isn't terrible. Is it as good or better than the first one? I don't think so. A lot of my problems have to do with the fact that it just kind of repeats a lot of the same beats as the first one. It still doesn't do anything really like new or clever with the whole video game angle. It kind of just repeats the same stuff as the first one. Like, in fact, right down to repeating a lot of the same jokes. Like, oh, here's the NPC. Oh, here are the, I guess, like quick time events or ridiculous powers and stupid weaknesses. And a lot of it was kind of lazy in that regard, especially in the story. The thing that prompts everyone to come back to this game was kind of stupid and ruined one of the characters for me, and made him kind of like selfish. But I mean, everything else in the movie is fine. It's still enjoyable. The comedy, even the stuff that doesn't quite work, still works in some regard. The actors playing against type is still really funny, especially when you bring in people like Danny DeVito and Awkwafina, who are both amazing in this movie. The action is really entertaining. The effects are still really hokey on purpose. And, you know, there is still some bit of heart to it. It doesn't feel as genuine as the first movie, but, you know, it's still there. I don't know, the people that I saw it with seemed to really enjoy it, and I enjoyed it too. It just wasn't up to the same level as the first one for me. Again, if I had to rate it, probably give it like 3.5 or maybe a 4. Next up, Spies in Disguise, the new animated movie by Blue Sky Entertainment, starring Will Smith and Tom Holland. This movie, everyone should go see. It is absolute unbridled insanity, and I love it for that exact reason. When I saw the trailers for the movie, I was a little concerned, but still interested to go see it. When it started off kind of slow and kind of predictable and stuff like that. But as soon as Will Smith turns into a pigeon, it is just non-stop hilarity from right there. This is probably one of the most surprising movies that I saw last year. It's really funny. The animation is really nice and like cartoony. I like the details of how they make all of the characters look like their respective actors. Like you can tell, like not even if you had never heard their voices before, you can be like, oh, that's Will Smith, that's Tom Holland, that's Karen Gillan, that's DJ Khaled, stuff like that. So I thought that was really clever. I like that the movie can be slightly mature at times. Like, it's not afraid to have characters just flat out die. The villain is really cool. And it also has a lot of heart to it, especially when dealing with like the stuff with the mom. But honestly, the main selling point to this movie is just seeing Will Smith as the pigeon and just the absolute ridiculous scenes and stuff like that come with it. I would definitely recommend this movie if you have kids, if you don't have kids, if you're taking a date, whatever. Like, I saw this with my girlfriend, we both loved it. So yeah, definitely check this movie out if you have a chance. I'm giving this a 4.5 out of 5. Next up is The Grudge. This is, I guess, a remake of one of the Grudge movies that have come out in the past like couple of years or so, and easy contender for worst movie of 2020. Like, seriously, this movie, even the friend I saw it with, who is like a huge horror fan and even has a soft spot for some of the lesser horror movies, like, even he was like, this is so bad. Like, and it's honestly, if you want to know how bad this was, I fell asleep 5 times in this movie. And I mean, you could chalk that up to I was working that day with some friends on a project, and I had to get up really early and stuff like that. But no, after a while, even after that, I realized that no, this movie is just so bad. Like, because nothing happens in this movie. Like, it is so boring. Like, the story and how it's laid out is not a terrible concept for a story, but its execution is fucking terrible. It is so bad. The characters are all one note. The actors aren't anything that special. You know, the visuals and camera work are not really that interesting. The only thing that kept me awake, the only things that kept waking me up throughout this entire thing were the jump scares. And like, that is one thing I'll say. The jump scares are not as obnoxious as you would think they would be in like most modern horror movies. There are still probably too many of them, but there were like 4 legitimately good jump scares in this movie. But that's it. Like, that's the only good thing that I can say about this movie. Other than that, it was really boring, really pointless, not scary, not even funny. Yeah, just don't even see this. I would give this like, I don't know, 0.5 out of 5. Next up is Uncut Gems. This is the new Adam Sandler comedy drama. It is about a guy that runs this like jewelry store who is kind of like a fast talker, a swindler. He like knows how to cheat people out of money, but he also has to like use whatever resources he can to like pay off some dangerous people and try and keep himself out of trouble. But it turned like every time he does try to do that, he ends up putting himself in more trouble. And essentially what this movie is a 2.5-hour anxiety attack. Like, you're seriously sat there for this whole time watching this guy make bad decision after bad decision after bad decision, and you're just sat there like, Jesus Christ, this is not looking good for this dude. And every time you think like he might be turning himself around and going in the right direction, he just fucks it up even more, and you're like, dude, what the hell are you doing? Like, seriously, it's honestly, especially towards the third act, like, you are on the edge of your seat, and you are there's a scene with a basketball game where you're kind of like right there with him. You're like watching intensely, like, holy shit, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? Okay, good, they got that. And honestly, that like speaks volumes for the writing, the directing, and the performance especially. Like Adam Sandler, I think this is one of the best things I've ever seen Adam Sandler in. And he honestly should be doing more stuff like this. Like I get it, like the terrible comedies and stuff probably make him more money or give him an excuse to go on vacation, but seriously, he should be doing more stuff like this. It's a well-crafted movie, it's well written, well shot, well acted, it's super suspenseful, it's intense, there are hints of comedy in there, and it's just insane. Like, it's utter insanity. And if I had seen this before I started making my worst and best lists, I would probably put this as high as like number 5 on the list. Like, it is such a good movie, and it's not being recognized for anything at the Oscars. Like, I'm recording this video right after they announced the Oscar nominations for this year, and Uncut Gems wasn't on there at all. That is so devastating. It is so disappointing. But regardless, still a really great movie. Definitely go see it if you have the chance, and if I had to rate it, I'd probably give it a 5 out of 5. Next up is 1917, Sam Mendes's new World War I drama about these two brothers who have to travel beyond enemy lines to deliver a message that this group of British soldiers are walking into a trap. I didn't know what to think about this movie when I was seeing trailers for it. I'm like, it's just another war movie. That's not really my type of thing. But then after it started getting nominated and started winning awards, I was like, and after I started hearing a bunch of positive word of mouth about the movie, I was like, well, shit, I kind of have to go see this now. So I took my dad to see it the day before I left, and it was amazing. Like, this is, like, usually war movies aren't my cup of tea, but this is honestly one of the best movies I've ever seen. Like, just in the way that, if you don't get into the story, that's fine, but, like, you at least gotta respect the movie just on how it's crafted. Like, because it's, like, filmed to look like it was all done in one shot. Like, one continuous shot following these two guys around through, like, multiple different areas. And it's honestly seamless. Like, it's really hard to tell, like, where the cuts are and stuff like that. I mean, some parts are kind of obvious, but it's honestly, like, really cool and really intense, and it adds to, like, the tension of that. Like, this isn't like your typical war movie, like gunfights, dogfights, bodies being flayed up, and, you know, a bunch of bloodiness and shit like that. It's honestly kind of calm for the most parts. There are a few, like, really intense moments, but nothing like super over the top like you'd expect from a movie like this. It kind of just is following these two guys, like, on this mission, and the way that it's shot and the way that it makes you feel like you're there with them. Like, it makes you feel like you are, you know, the third person on this mission. And I mean, beyond the technical aspect, the story is really well crafted too. It's suspenseful. You get to learn a little bit about these two characters. Apparently this is based off of stories that the director's grandfather would tell him, like, about his time in the war and stuff like that, which is really interesting. There's a lot of, like, tension mixed in with a lot of really good slow moments that work, and it's just a really great movie. Like, honestly, if there's anyone out there that is interested in becoming a cinematographer, you should definitely go and check this movie out, because, like, this is unique. Like, I don't think any movie, to my knowledge, has attempted something like this before. It is really good, and I would definitely recommend checking it out if you haven't already. And if I had to rate it, I'd probably give it a 5 out of 5. Next up, The Irishman, Martin Scorsese's 3-hour mob epic starring Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, and Joe Pesci. I saw that as well before I left at my grandpa's house. It was, I was showing him how to use Netflix. And while we were there, we decided, hey, let's watch The Irishman, because I hadn't seen the movie yet, so I figured now's a better time than any to watch it. And it was pretty decent. It was a little slow moving, and it's kind of hard to follow because there's no, like, real, like, it's basically just Robert De Niro's character talking about his time in the mob and like all the stuff that he got up to with like Joe Pesci and like Al Pacino's character Jimmy Hoffa. It's really well crafted. I think all three of them give really good performances. It's definitely presented really well, and it's definitely written really well as well. But it's kind of hard to follow in certain places because it's not really like there's no like end goal. Like usually most movies have like, you know, like a linear story with an end goal and stuff like that. This doesn't really have that. It's just kind of this guy telling the story of his life and stuff like that. But I mean, even then, it's still done really well. It is long though. I will say it is pretty long. It keeps you invested enough to where you don't like feel tired, but like at some point you do kind of feel the runtime. But I mean, other than that, I thought it was a pretty solid movie. It had good performances. It had good emotion. It had some funny moments. It was presented really well. Good cinematography, good editing, lively soundtrack. And yeah, this will probably get quite a few awards at the Oscars or wherever else it's nominated. So yeah, if you have Netflix, definitely check it out. It's worth the watch. If I had to rate it, I'd probably give it a 4 out of 5. And finally, Little Women. It was fine. It was a decent movie. I should preface this by saying I haven't read the book, and I haven't seen any of the other versions, so like I don't really have anything to compare it to, but it was definitely enjoyable for what it was. Like I was invested. I like how it was kind of told out of order. I thought the actresses were all really good. The directing was also pretty solid too. This is Greta Gerwig, which I still need to watch Lady Bird, but I know she has like got some talent to her. So she did a pretty good job here. I thought the production design, all the costumes and everything looked really cool. There were a few like well-placed like funny moments and heartfelt moments and stuff like that. It was pretty decent, but it was also kind of slow and once again like hard to follow for the first half hour because like I didn't understand that, oh yeah, this is being told out of order. But still pretty decent movie, pretty solid movie. It's probably gonna get a couple awards. But yeah, so check it out if you're interested. I'd probably give it a 3.5, maybe a 4, but yeah. So that does it for the first Ketchup review of 2020. Time to rank these movies from worst to best. Starting with the worst, The Grudge, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, Little Women, Jumanji: The Next Level, The Irishman, Spies in Disguise, Uncut Gems, and 1917. Let me know down in the comments if any of these movies interested you, if you've seen them, what do you think of them? Thank you guys so much for watching. Welcome to 2020 and welcome back to Chicago. I plan to do a lot of exciting stuff this year involving a look at some older movies, maybe even some TV shows. So stay tuned for all of that. But until then, be sure to like, subscribe, ring the notification bell so you can stay up to date on when I'm posting. Follow me on all my social media, subscribe to my main channel. Everything you need to know will be in the description. Thank you guys for watching, and see you later.